Sam Cohen, thanks very much for speaking to 7:30. You worked with the Queen for many, many years. What is it that you've seen about her that's perhaps not well understood or not seen by the rest of the world?
I think the rest of the world has probably seen her in ceremonial situations when she's toured the world, and they've always seen her coming to attend events and very formal occasions. But she's actually in person a very sweet and shy and humble person with a great sense of humour.
Tell us about that sense of humour, because people talk about it. You see little snippets now and then, but give us an example of that sort of sense of humour that you saw.
It was behind the scenes, because I think publicly she knew she had to be very professional, and often the occasion she was attending didn't call for that. But behind the scenes, when she was with her teams, when we were letting our hair down after a day out or on tour, she would be incredibly funny.
There is a knife there as well. What? There is a knife. I know there is.
And then she also had a great sense of the ridiculous. So if something happened on an engagement, if something got stuck to someone, a speech note, or if something fell over, she would see that the whole thing was quite silly and ridiculous, and she loved that.
Now, you spent you went with her on a number of tours to Australia. Tell us about her relationship with Australia and what that country, our country, meant to her.
Oh, she absolutely loved Australia. She came to Australia 16 times, and I went with her 3 times. And I think she loved Australians because they were so direct and funny, and they treated her with great respect, but not in a sycophantic way. And I think she really liked the character of Australians. Right through all the people she met met with Indigenous people, with lots of ordinary Australians, and I think she just thought we were fun and that we were straight.
And of course, Charles went to school there for a while. That was quite deliberate, wasn't it, to send him to Australia for that experience?
Yes, he was at Geelong Grammar, and I think that the family knew that he would be taken care of, and I think they thought it would be a very good experience because it would show him a side of life that was so different to where he'd grown up.
Now, the big question, I guess, for many people now is what sort of king he'll be. He's had quite an apprenticeship, hasn't he?
He'll be an extraordinary king, an extraordinary king. He has been trained very well by his mother. Well, I think trained is the wrong word. He has followed his mother and his father's example for many years. He's deeply knowledgeable, and I think he has evolved with the institution.
Of course, he's got a deep commitment, environmental commitment, particularly on climate change. He's been quite vocal about that. But now that he's king, things change a bit, don't they? It's harder to be out there and really expressing those sort of views.
Well, I think the world has changed. So I think that each monarch has to evolve and adapt and adjust, and I think that the world adjusts with them. And so I think he's very adaptable. He will be able to make his reign unique and relevant to people's issues now.
Can I take you back a few days? Tell me where you were and your reaction when you first heard that the Queen, the person you'd worked for so many years, had passed away.
Yes, I heard the news that the Queen had passed away. I was in Rome, actually, and I had a phone call. Someone said she's gone, and I think the poignant moment for me was that Rome was the last place I had been with her on her last overseas visit.
Not everyone, of course, had the inside view that you had. For ordinary Australians, some of whom weren't really interested in the royal family, what would you say to them that they've lost with the passing of the Queen?
Well, I think they've lost someone who represented a value system that is more difficult to find these days, and a framework for life. And I think that, regardless of what your politics are, I think that the Queen herself and the institution that she presided over did an enormous service to many countries, to the 54 countries of the Commonwealth, to realms like Australia. She understood that throughout the turmoil of political change, global wars, social upheaval, there needed to be a constant, but a constant without any agenda or any particular wanting to get anything out of the situation.
As a former employee, as a friend, how are you coping these days, after a few days after her passing?
I think the Queen is the sort of person that the more you reflect on her life and her contribution, actually the sadder you become in a way, because it takes a long time to process the depth of her contribution. What people didn't see was the work she put in, day out, in the freezing winters in the United Kingdom, where she would get on a train, an ordinary train, travel to somewhere quite remote, visit ordinary people in hospices, in schools. It wasn't glamorous, it were long days. So it was a difficult job, but every single day, she put on a smile late into her 80s, and she served people, and that's what made her so special. Her whole life was about service. I mean, she really did say that. She would say, well, we must get on. She never took sick days. She very rarely cancelled anything through pregnancy, through illness. She was tough and she was strong.
Now, of course, nobody is perfect, and she's human. She was human. Did she display any flaws? Anything you'd tell us about her? She's a legend. Nothing.
She was perfect. No, she was feisty. She was wonderfully feisty, and she would drive. She would drive very fast at Balmoral on those private roads.
Did she scare you at times?
Sometimes.
Tell me about what would happen for all the staff at Christmas.
Well, the Queen loved Christmas, and she would give every single staff member, there were, I think, around 400 people working for her. She would make sure that everybody had a Christmas pudding, and every year they would also create a special gift that she would then stand up and hand to every member of staff with Prince Philip.
Including you?
Including me.
And you got a little tag from one of those gifts. Can we just have a look at that? And what's it say?
It says, "Sam, Happy Christmas from Elizabeth R."
With that iconic signature, of course. When you look at that and you see that signature and it came directly from her, what are the emotions that run through your mind?
Huge affection. She was very special person, and it was an incredible honour to be in her presence and to work with her and serve her all those years.
Now, to do a job like that for so long, it helps to have a prodigious memory. And you were telling me she does have that. Tell me about the example of the trip to Kununurra that you discovered a few years ago.
Yes, she had an extraordinary memory because she didn't use computers, and she would remember everything and was always across her brief. And it was quite remarkable, way into her 90s. And I remember one day we were preparing the program for Australia for the visit in 2011 because we were going to Perth. And she'd been 15 times by that point. So we were trying to think of things that she could visit or places that she hadn't been before. And it was quite difficult because she's been to most places. And I thought to myself, I know Kununurra. She won't have visited Kununurra. So I put this proposal to her, and I looked up all the prior programs, and I thought, nope, she hasn't been to Kununurra. So I said to the Queen, you might like to visit this place, it's quite remote. She said, I've been there. I said, well, Your Majesty, it doesn't seem to be in the previous programs. And she said, well, I have been there, you know. And I thought, okay, yes, Your Majesty, I'll look again. So I went through the programs again, couldn't find Kununurra. And I thought, I can't go back again. But I found another set of archives, and after a lot of research, I did find that she'd visited Kununurra in 1963 for an hour, which was listed as a refuelling stop only. But I subsequently discovered she'd got out of the plane and visited the Ord River scheme. But she remembered, and that had been in 1963.
So she was right.
She was absolutely right.
Was she always right?
She's always right.
Now, you talked about Indigenous Australians. She had a particularly close encounter relationship with the Namatjura family, Albert Namatjura, the great Australian painter. Tell us about that.
Well, she was presented with a painting by Albert Namatjura when she first came to Australia as part of her 1954 first Commonwealth tour. And he was at the height of his fame then, and he presented one of his beautiful watercolours. And I think he died a few years after that. But Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, had collected a number of paintings by him and other members of his family. So the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh invited the descendants, the relatives of Albert Namatjura, to Buckingham Palace, and they displayed all the personal artwork they had of his and his teacher as well. So there was a long relationship with the family.
So some amazing memories here. Tell us about this picture here.
This is in the ballroom of Buckingham Palace when the Queen presented me with my Lieutenant of the Victorian Order medal. I'm laughing. She made me laugh.
Sounds like she made you laugh quite a bit. Did you make her laugh as well?
We were always laughing. I tried to make her laugh, and I always thought it was a good day if I'd made her laugh.
And finally, this photo here,
That was a working day at Windsor Castle. So I used to have an office. There were 3 private secretaries, and when we were on duty, we'd have an office down here. And someone took this photo when I was walking across the forecourt to another part of the castle. But I don't have many photographs because I was always on the other side of the camera and working. And
it was your job not to be part of the story, wasn't it?
Exactly.
Is this uncomfortable for you, being a part of this story, very much part of this story?
Very much so. I don't like it at all.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
I don't like it,
yeah.
But I think it's important to talk about the Queen, and I've never spoken about her on camera before, so this is a special time.
You first saw the Queen in 1977, I believe. Could you have dreamt back then as a schoolgirl, seeing the Queen in Brisbane for the first time, that you would have this long association with the family?
No, absolutely not. I vividly remember first seeing the Queen in 77 outside my school in Brisbane, All Hallows, and I was waving my flag, which was stuck to my ruler, and I remember thinking, what an extraordinary woman. And I had never imagined, I couldn't have imagined that I would end up working with her all these years later.
And now, can you imagine life without her?
People thought that every visit the Queen did from the age of 80 was her last, and she did another 16 years of hard work. So we've all been preparing for this moment for a very long time, but she was so strong, probably until her husband died, until Prince Philip died. And I think, you know, she just gave everything. She gave everything right up until the last moments of her life. She even saw in the new Prime Minister of this country just before she died. And I think that we are now processing all the memories of her.
What did she teach you?
She taught me that you have to be true to your values and you have to be true to yourself. And she had many times in her life where she wasn't necessarily popular. when life was difficult, when she had many issues that she had to deal with, both with her family or global issues, and she just kept going. The Queen was an anchor. She was such an emotional anchor because her value system was so clear that you felt very sure of the world when she was in it. And I think that she was just there for so long that we don't know a world without her in it, really.
Samantha Cohen, thanks very much for talking to 7:30.
Thank you.